Welcome to week 2 of online instruction. In this video, we're going to be introducing topic 12, monopoly. And really this topic and the next topic cover market structures other than perfect competition. And in all of these market structures, firms have what we call market power. So market power refers to the firm's ability to raise its price. And if you remember back to the competition lectures, we talked about how firms have no ability in perfect competition to increase their prices. And that's because each firm is producing an identical product to the rest of the firms in the market. There are lots and lots of firms. So in perfect competition, we would have then a demand curve that looks like this. Firms would observe the price in the market. That price would be fixed for the individual firm. They're not going to be able to sell their product for any higher price because all of their competitors are selling an identical product at the market price. And so we have here a perfectly elastic demand curve. And that means that firms have not only do they have no control over their price, but their marginal revenue, the revenue that they receive from selling one additional unit of the product, is just equal to the market price, right? So every apple you sell, you get $1 back, right? The price of an apple is $1. So marginal revenue, remember, that's the additional revenue from each additional unit that's just equal to the price in competition. So in competition, we said firms observe the price, they set price equal to marginal cost in order to maximize profits, and that's how they make their production decisions. Well, it's going to be a little bit different now when we're talking about firms that have market power or the ability to raise their prices. They don't have a lot of competitors, or maybe in the case of a monopoly, they have no competitors. So they observe the full downward sloping demand curve for that market, or at least a portion of it, as we'll talk about in topic 13. So firms here with market power have a downward sloping demand curve, and that means that they can raise their prices, but it also means that they observe this inverse relationship between price and quantity. So this firm, for example, could set a price of P1, and in that case, customers would choose to buy this quantity Q1. If the firm wanted to sell one more unit of the product, right, say we want to move over here to Q2, in order to do that, they have to lower their price, right? In order to sell one additional unit, the firm would need to lower its prices for all of the units it's selling. Now, we are assuming here that firms set one price for all of their customers. And that's true in a lot of cases. When you go to the grocery store and you buy apples, right, everybody pays the same price for an apple. If you go buy a bike or a t-shirt, right, it has a price tag on it, and that's the price that all of the customers are paying. So that's what we're assuming now. We'll relax that assumption in topic 12 in just a couple videos. All right, so for now, if the firm wants to increase the quantity they sell, they've got to lower their price. And not just for the one additional customer, for all of their customers, right? So all of their customers now are going to be paying this new lower price of P2. So we want to think about what that means for marginal revenue. Oops, what is the additional revenue that we get from that one additional unit? Well, it's going to be less than P2, right? Because I sell one more unit, I get the price, I get the amount of money that I sell the unit for, that's P2, but I also am losing money on the sale of all of the other units that I'm selling since I lowered my price from P1 to P2. So in general here, we can be a little bit more general, when firms have market power, marginal revenue is not equal to price. In fact, it's always less than the price that they sell their products for. We want to now think about what is marginal revenue. Of course, that's a big part of the firm behavior question, because the firm is going to weigh the costs and benefits of production, and the cost is marginal cost, the benefit is marginal revenue. So how do we calculate marginal revenue when we have a firm with market power? All right, there's a real simple rule that you can use to find marginal revenue when you have this linear demand curve, all right? And in this class, we'll always have linear demand curves. So here we have P equals A minus BQ. Normally those are numbers, but I've stuck in some letters there to stand in for the slope and the intercept of demand. Marginal revenue would be equal to A minus 2BQ, okay? So this is what you want to remember here. And actually, I think it's easier, rather than remembering all the A's and B's, what's the best thing to do is just to remember that to get marginal revenue, you're just going to multiply the slope of demand by 2. Okay, so you take your demand equation, you multiply the number next to the Q by 2. Then you've got your marginal revenue equation. Why is that? That seems really arbitrary, right? So why is that our marginal revenue equation? Well, the answer is math. And if you haven't, you don't have to pay attention to this, right? You can plug your ears, fast forward the video, that's fine. But some of you will find this a little bit satisfying to see why is this arbitrary rule true. So I'm going to show you, okay? So what we want to remember is that to get marginal revenue, what we're doing is we're taking the change in total revenue divided by the change in quantity, right? Change in total revenue over change in quantity. And so the first thing we need to recognize is that this means this is the derivative of the total revenue function with respect to quantity. So we can write out our total revenue function, that's price times quantity. And when we have a fixed price, like in perfect competition, then we can just take the derivative. And the derivative of total revenue would just be equal to price. And that's why in perfect competition, marginal revenue is equal to price. But in this case, price is a function of quantity, right? We have a downward sloping demand curve, meaning that the price you set determines how much you will sell. So our total revenue function, we need to plug in the relationship between price and quantity, which is given by the demand curve. And we can simplify that. That's AQ minus BQ squared. And now when I go to calculate marginal revenue, I take the derivative of my total revenue function with respect to quantity, I get A minus 2BQ, right? Okay, so it is always true that linear demand will have this marginal revenue function. And if you've plugged your ears, if you're fast forwarding, come back now. All right, we're gonna look at the graph. So here with this graph, right, we have our demand equation and our marginal revenue equation, and it's always gonna look exactly like this, right? So your demand equation starts at some intercept, that's the this number in your demand equation, A, okay, and then it comes down to the x-axis, just A over B. Your marginal revenue equation has the same intercept, right? It's gonna start at the same point as the demand curve, and then it's gonna come down and intersect the x-axis at half of demand's intercept, right? Because it's twice as steep, it comes down twice as fast. So the intercept will be half of the intercept for the demand curve. So marginal revenue will always look like that. We know how to calculate marginal revenue. The next step is to apply that to a monopoly problem, and we'll do that in the next video. All right, stay tuned.